By the looks of it, you'd think I'm some kind of master Etch-A-Sketch artist, but in reality, I'm not doing anything. That's because my custom Etch-A-Sketch can draw on its own, but that's not even the wildest part. I also built this mysterious little companion gadget for it. With it, making Etch-A-Sketch drawings is now a total snap. It's a snap because it's a camera. In today's episode, I'll show you how I turned my custom Etch-A-Sketch into an automated artist. I'll also show you how I created this little camera that can take real-life photos and convert them to Etch-A-Sketch drawings. But first, buckle up. It's time to rewind and see how we got here. Hey everyone, and welcome to Tekavou. In the last episode, we upgraded the Etch-A-Sketch. We gave it a much-needed undo button, but we also let it play AAA games like Snake and Pong. I thought that by adding an undo button, it would help me create better drawings. But the reality is, it wasn't the undo button that was the problem, it was the lack of artistic talent. Coding though, that I can do. So today I'm going to see if I can create an Etch-A-Sketch that can draw on its own. The idea is simple. I'm going to feed it an image and it's going to do its best to try to create an Etch-A-Sketch version of that. Now, believe it or not, this isn't a new idea. Other people have done similar projects in the past. But I'm going to take it a little step further. I'm going to throw a camera in the mix. That's right, we're also going to build an Etch-A-Sketch camera. Now, I have full faith that future me can figure this out. So down here on the left-hand corner, wait, this is my left, your left. Down here on the left-hand corner, I'm going to have a time lapse of the Teka-Sketch drawing the Mona Lisa, and hopefully it'll look pretty good. We need to set a bar though to measure success, so I'm going to compare my output to the output of an actual artist, Princess Etch. Princess Etch is famous for her incredible Etch-A-Sketch art, including her own version of the Mona Lisa. The bar is set very, very high, so let's not waste any more time. We'll begin by defining what an Etch-A-Sketch image actually is. In my point of view, an Etch-A-Sketch image is a drawing made entirely of one continuous line with no jumps. Luckily, since we're working digitally, there's already a file format that can save this line data for us. It's called SVG. In an SVG file, you can draw one continuous line by simply listing all the coordinates it needs to go through. It's basically like those old connect the dot puzzles, except this time we're counting the thousands. Now, how do you take a real image and turn it into a series of lines? I've actually sort of figured this out in the past if you ever watched my Lightbright video. In that video, I was able to get a Lightbright to draw images on its own instead of relying on those flimsy little sheets that it comes with. The Lightbright was figuring out what the edges of an image were. I don't know if this is going to be good for an Etch-A-Sketch, but I think it's a really good starting point. Attempt number 1. The first thing I'm going to do is take the image and turn it black and white. Then I'm going to resize it down and blur it so that it could remove any noise. Next, we're going to find the edges. So far, this is exactly what I had done with the Lightbright. Here's where the differences start. This is going to create a whole bunch of little islands. We're going to need to connect all of them together using bridges. Now, enough technical talk. Let's see what this gives us. This is not a bad start, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Attempt number 2. This time, before hunting for the edges, I'm going to remove all the background so that the Etch-A-Sketch isn't distracted. Then, when it's time to connect the islands, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to create a map of cheap versus expensive bridges. Essentially, if I've built a bridge, I'm going to cross it again. If I'm really stuck and I have no other choice, then I'll create a new bridge. This should create a cleaner image with fewer random strokes. That's a theory at least. Let's see how this panned out. Okay, I know we're really early in the project, but I really want to see what the Mona Lisa looks like so far. Oh boy, there she is, folks. I think I accidentally created the Ona Lisa instead of the Mona Lisa. People are trying to figure out whether the Mona Lisa is smiling or not in the real painting, and mine kind of just looks like she read some YouTube comments. Attempt number 3. What I've discovered is that edge detection works great for cartoon images, but it simply doesn't work with realistic images. The Mona Lisa was just terrible. Let's try a new approach. What if we take the original image and create 4x4 blocks? If a block is darker, we'll make it black. If it's lighter, we'll make it white. Then we're going to connect everything with a bunch of bridges. This should give us a higher fidelity image. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, the Mona Lisa looks like the Mona Lisa now, but this certainly doesn't look like an Etch-A-Sketch drawing. It just kind of looks like a low-res image that's black and white. I think we're going to need to go back and revise the definition of what an Etch-A-Sketch drawing should be. This is what I came up with, a drawing made entirely of one continuous line with no jumps and at least one space between lines. If you're like me, you've probably tried to erase an entire Etch-A-Sketch image only to find out that you can't. Because you're shifting aluminum around, you simply can't create giant black blobs, so I think the space between lines makes a lot of sense. Attempt number 4 and 5. I decided to take a step back and focus on different kind of ways of making line art. I wanted to experiment with some hatching, which is basically a way of creating art using parallel lines. I found a whole bunch of different ways of doing this on the internet, and I decided to port some of that over. So how does hatching look? Pretty good actually. I really like what it did to this Banksy piece. The problem here though is that if you've used an Etch-A-Sketch, you know that diagonal lines are hard to do. So I think we're going to need to redefine our definition one more time. How about a drawing made entirely of one continuous line with no jumps and at least one space between the lines? It shouldn't rely heavily on diagonals. Attempt number 6. This one was obvious, so of course it took me forever to think of it. Just crosshatch it like linen. It gives us nice clean horizontal and vertical lines, and it's perfect for an Etch-A-Sketch. Areas that need more detail will get more crosshatches, and areas with less detail get fewer. It's sort of like sheet thread count. We're going to be using Egyptian cotton for faces, and whatever mystery fabric that last hotel I stayed at for background. If I do get a diagonal that sneaks in, I'm going to run it through something called orthogonalization. Or this word, which basically turns my diagonals into tiny staircases. Enough chatter, let's see what this looks like. Final attempt, 7 through 10. Okay, we're speeding through this now. This is starting to look good, but if you look at the legs here, there are bridges all over the place. To finally fix the bridge problem, we're going to need a new algorithm. Picture yourself as a postal worker with a heavy bag of letters. You have to walk every street in the neighborhood, deliver to every house, and you don't want to waste half of your time trudging up and down the same block 5 times. And no, you can't just cut across people's lawns, at least you shouldn't. Unlike Canada Post, you also have to deliver the mail on time. This is where the Chinese Postman algorithm comes into play. It's a clever trick that figures out the shortest route and still covers every street at least once. Sometimes you'll have to double back, but that's only when you have no other choice. This algorithm isn't exclusive to mail carriers. The same idea gets used in everyday life, from garbage trucks collecting your trash to snowplows clearing out the streets. Basically, any time you need to cover every path without wasting time. The Chinese Postman algorithm can even help you one-up your Pac-Man game, because in a way, Pac-Man's just clearing out every corridor efficiently while not getting eaten by ghosts. To make it work on my Teka-Sketch, I built a skeleton of the drawing that defines where the streets are. As much as possible, I want to stay on the streets. Then I added potential bridge points, which helped me find the shortest distance between 2 islands. Just like in real life, you don't want to create an extra long bridge. I had to go through quite a few iterations to get this right. It took forever to sketch one single image. I did manage to optimize it down to about 10 to 15 seconds per image, which I think is a win. Now, we don't care about the optimizations, we just want to see what this looks like, right? So let's take a look at the final footage. As you've probably noticed, the Mona Lisa in the corner is just about done. So let's compare her to the version by Princess Etch. At first glance, they actually both look pretty good, I think. If we zoom in, you'll start to notice the differences right away. Mine looks very programmatic, because it is. It's all straight lines with no personality. Hers, on the other hand, there's a lot of deliberate artistic choices here. There's gentle curves, there's smoother flows, there's details that make it feel alive. There's no algorithm that can really do that. Sure, maybe if I trained an AI on thousands of Etch-A-Sketch drawings, I could get closer, but it'll never replace that human touch. So yeah, I can't claim to beat Princess Etch or even be in the same league as her, but I did at least manage to one-up my Mona Lisa. Let's be honest, hers belongs in a museum. Best case for me, my drawing's going to be on a magnet in the garage fridge. If there are any pictures you want me to test out, let me know in the comments below and I'll post a short with some of the best ideas. It might feel like this episode is winding down, but we still have another project left here. Automatically drawing with a Teka-Sketch is pretty neat, but wouldn't it be even cooler if we could take pictures with a camera and have those etched too? The code is already there, so let's just build it. The simple solution would be to just use my phone to take pictures, but where's the fun in that? Instead, I'm going to build my own camera. Building a camera sounds complicated, but we only need 3 parts: a Raspberry Pi, a camera module, and a couple of buttons. No, not those kind of buttons. This is an Etch-A-Sketch, not an Etsy-Sketch. Much better. All that's left now is to build a shell to house a camera, but this shouldn't take very long. I'm still new at designing products, and like most engineers, I underestimated how much effort this would take. Honestly, I think it took me more tries to design this case than the actual algorithm. Ultimately, I ended up with this. The design is a little utilitarian, sure, but it works. Remember a few minutes ago when I said I was happy that it took 10 to 15 seconds to turn an image into an Etch-A-Sketch? Well, on the Raspberry Pi, that same process takes about 10 to 15 minutes. 10 to 15 minutes might have been fine if this was Leonardo da Vinci sketching a portrait, but in 2025, this is an eternity. I could have burnt a frozen pizza in this time. So naturally, instead of keeping things simple, I made them even more complicated. We now have 3 components: the TekaCam, the Teka-Sketch, and my Mac Mini, which I've creatively named the Teka Server. Here's the workflow. I snap a picture with the TekaCam, it gets sent over to the Teka Server, the server etchifies it, and then beams it back to the Teka-Sketch. When I leave the house, the TekaCam just saves the photos to its SD card and the server catches up later. When I first started this project, I naively assumed that nobody had ever built a camera for an Etch-A-Sketch before. But this is the internet, of course somebody beat me to it. That somebody was EveryFlavorRobot. While I built mine independently, it's pretty cool that we both assumed that using edges was the way to go. I noticed that it worked better with cartoons, and their strategy was to cartoonify their images. The detail in mine is noticeably better, but they get a big thumbs up for doing this natively on a real Etch-A-Sketch. I'm going to end this episode with a few more snapshots that I took on the TekaCam. But before we do that, you may have noticed that there's an extra button on my camera. That's reserved for not 1, but 2 extra upgrades that I'm reserving for a future video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss it, but also let me know in the comments below what you think the extra button should do. Wrong answers only. Thanks for watching, and remember, if at first you don't succeed, at least it can't be as bad as my Ono Lisa.